Most of you know that Becky and I were gone for the last week. We went to St. Louis for a U.S. missions deal. Now, normally when I go on trips like this, I have usually an itinerary all made up. Here's the top 3 things I'm going to see. Here's the 4 things that if I have time I'm going to see. Here's the order because geographically I've looked at the maps I planned out. That didn't happen this time because the weeks before the trip were so chaotic, I just didn't get a chance. So we hit St. Louis not knowing what to see. We knew we were going to see the arch because that's their iconic landmark, so you have to see that. But other than that, we had no idea what we were going to do in St. Louis once the convention was over and the debrief was over. But I asked people while I was there. And they said, oh yeah, you got to see Grant's Farm. And Grant's Farm is a place where the Anheuser-Busch people own the farm, and that's where they put the horses, the Clydesdales out to pasture is there. And while I could care less about horses, Becky, on the other hand, loves all animals, horses especially, and those big draft horses she loves. She could stay all day talking to the things, okay? So the meeting's over, Saturday about noon. We get our rental car, and I take Michelle in hand. Michelle is my GPS. And I said, take us to the arch. Michelle said, okie dokie, and she took us to the arch, got us there. Now, what my friends that have been there before didn't tell us, and I'm glad they didn't, made it amazing. Because we parked in the parking structure that's kind of underground. We rode the elevator up to the top floor, which is at ground level. We opened the doors, and there was the most spectacular scene I've ever seen in my life. Because around the arch is a park, and the park is basically a grove of trees. And because it's late October in places where they have seasons, it was spectacular. We had Southern California. Becky's a Texas girl, but Texas doesn't have seasons either. So here we are, never in our lives having seen the colors we saw as we walked out of that elevator. Gold and orange and yellow and red, and it was amazing. And Becky just couldn't stop talking about how pretty it was, and that's one of the times I had to grudgingly say, you're absolutely right. Well, we saw the arch, we saw the museum underneath, they're cool. We're about done with looking at trees for a while, so we get in the car. Michelle, take us to Grant's Farm. So I punched it in, Michelle, take us to Grant's Farm, and off we go. And Grant's Farm is in a place that's very hilly, and there's houses here and there, and it's surrounded by busy streets that have some businesses on it, but it's full of trees. And so it's more of the color, not like at the arch, but still more of that color, and we're just like this. A couple Southern California kids trying to soak all of it we could. And we turned on the little lane that Michelle said that the farm is on. And it's a little 2-lane road about 200 yards long. Now I had noticed in this whole neighborhood, everything was called Grant's this and Grant's that. And I thought, who are they talking about? Because General Grant was from Galena, Illinois. Illinois is across the river and Galena is north from there. So this can't be General Grant. I wonder who this Grant guy is. Well, there's a sign about the time we decided that's not for us. Home of U.S. Grant. I said, that can't be. It's not possible. He did not live in Missouri. But we pulled in. It's a U.S. national park. And guess what? It was U.S. Grant's house. That's where he lived, and he farmed there. And then the Civil War happened, and we know he became the great general that we had, and then the president. And you know how George W., that he always went to Texas for his vacations? This is the house that General Grant and Mrs. Grant went to when they were the presidents, and then the president, and then afterwards. This was kind of like their Western White House. It was really cool to see that. And so it came time that we got to get back to the airport. So I told Michelle, take us to Enterprise Rental Car. And faithfully, she took us to Enterprise. While we were driving through those residential streets to get back to the busy streets, I said, Becky, you know, this is the dumbest thing we've ever done. And she said, what? And I said, do you understand we've got to catch a plane in 2 hours? We don't even know where the airport is. We don't know how to get there. We don't know where we are. We just know we're somewhere near where President Grant lived 150 years ago. We don't know where we are, but we're trusting this little device to get us there. I said, I don't want to listen to you anymore. I can watch the map. But you know, when you're driving and the map is scrolling, you miss turns because it comes up. So I said, okay, I know, I'll fix that. I turned her voice on and threw the thing down in the cup holder so I could hear her voice, but I didn't have to deal with the map. I kept missing stuff because she would say things like veer right and turn left, and I didn't know what that meant. So when I put the device back up in line of sight, like it's supposed to be, where I could see the map and hear her voice, I never missed a turn, and I got exactly where I wanted to be. And it makes me think about the journey that we're on. That we are in territory we've never visited before. Yeah, we've all been here in this room. We've all been in our places of ministry and work. But today is a completely different day than yesterday was. And we're facing different things by the day, by the week, by the month. So we're in territory we've never been in. And somebody needs to guide us through this because we've got a destination. And we don't know how to get there. We don't know where it is from here. And so we trust the Lord to be our guide for that, right? That's pretty simple, pretty basic. And like Michelle, I found that I had to have her voice and the map to get where I needed to go without making a lot of wrong turns. I think the analogy there is that as the Lord leads us, He leads us by the Spirit, the voice. And He's forever saying things to our hearts, tugging on us, like Paul wanted to go this direction, and somebody appeared to him and said, no, go that way. Or he wanted to go here, and the Spirit tugged him. The Spirit is always talking to us, tugging us, pushing us, guiding us, putting His arm around us and gently taking us this direction or that. But a lot of times what the Spirit says to our hearts sounds like veer right, then turn left. We don't know what it means. What we have to do is immerse ourselves in the Scripture. And when we encounter the Spirit and the Word together, and we make that our practice, then suddenly our path becomes more clear, because I read somewhere that it said, lamp unto my feet and a light to my path. We listen to the Spirit, we look at the Word, and together the Lord uses that to guide us through territory we've never been to a destination we've never seen. And I think about our journey, that as we go through this uncharted territory, we're heading to a place that is nothing like we think it's going to be. We have images. Paul says, I knew a guy, we all think it was him, that went to that destination, and he came back and he said, I can't describe with words what we saw. Just amazing. It's beyond description. And so we're guided by the Spirit to a place we've never seen that's going to be so dramatically different and amazingly different than anything we can imagine. But that's not the point here today. A lot of you know that Becky is losing her sight fairly rapidly now. And in her good eye, her bad eye, she only sees color and shape, light and dark. And in her good eye now, I said that's her bad eye. In her good eye, she sees what I can see through this tube. She only sees this. And that is closing fairly rapidly on her. One of her bucket list things, because we're Southern California people, we've never seen a season in our lives. She desperately wanted to see the fall. I can hardly tell you this because it means so much that what happened. And when she got out of that elevator and saw her bucket list, that her father said, I know your sight's going away from you, and because I'm God and you're not, I'm not telling you why I'm not healing her yet. But I know how badly she wants to see this, so I'm going to give her the best picture there could ever be. And we walked for that hour or hour and a half through that, and she lived her bucket list, and God smiled and said, daughter, I love you so much. I just wanted to surprise you with this. I didn't want to front load you. Dan didn't tell us. Janelle didn't tell us how beautiful that was. They just said, you got to go. And she was amazed at the surprise her father gave her. And I think in the journey that we're on through this uncharted territory, that quite often He knows the desires of our hearts. And He says, child, you don't deserve this, but I love you, and I just want to bless you with something amazing. And the doors open to what we think is going to be mundane and routine, and it's spectacular because God did it just for us. And I studied U.S. Grant's leadership style. And as a young man, I tried to emulate some of the principles that he had as a leader. I knew everything there was to know about U.S. Grant, but I didn't know he lived in Missouri. I'd forgotten. Wasn't important because it was the blip between military and the Civil War. So God then took a son who loves Civil War stuff and who lives in a state that our only connection to the Civil War is one building in San Pedro and part of a fort that's up in Fort Tejon. That's our only connection to the Civil War. And he took me to a place that was a surprise. Nobody told me his house was there. None of the online stuff I looked at told me that Grant lived there and I could go see his house. So the Father took me to a place that, like Becky, for me is important, because every time I go south, I got to see Civil War stuff. And he said, son, you thought you were going to go be bored watching horses, but I'm going to show you something. The thing I think about that most is, and the reason I reinforce the idea that I didn't know he lived there, because God's got stuff in our path that we don't even imagine. We think we've got it. We think we've got it wired. We think, okay, I don't know what heaven's really going to be like, but I kind of know how to get there, and I don't know where it is, but I know it's that direction. But along the path, there's stuff we don't even know about that God's got for us to say, here, I want to bless you. I was discouraged, I was frustrated, and I said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can change my flights and go home a day early. And I kept feeling this prompting, no, Becky needs the time away, you need the time away, I've got something for you, just do what I'm telling you. So then I got the car for just that Saturday. It was no problem. I got it. And I think he speaks to our hearts today. And this is what I feel like for this morning, that there might be somebody that God is speaking to your heart and saying, I've got a plan for you. Follow through what God told you. Follow through what your heart's desire was. Follow through with what you heard and you read. Because there's things on that path that he's got planned for you that are not only meeting your bucket list, but there are things you don't even know are on the path that are going to be tremendous blessings to you. I just pray that as you're walking along the journey, that you don't stay in the elevator and never see what God has for you.